They think of sustainability as this cost center, and they're not thinking about it as a value driver, which I find really frustrating because a lot of the time it saves money. So by improving our waste management processes, which we did over the last year, we're saving around £60,000+ every single year just because we're putting things in the right bins. So that is saving us cash. Good sustainability fundamentally. It reduces waste, it improves efficiency, it strengthens supply chains, and it builds resilience. And those are all commercial outcomes. If that sustainability lead left the business now, would the agenda keep moving forward? And if the answer is no, you're not doing a very good job. It should really be embedded into the business, lived and breathed, not just by this one person, this one department. If it falls down when they go, it was never really embedded.
Hey, just before we jump into the show, got a little favour to ask you. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please make sure you are subscribed on the platform of your choice. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, whatever platform that might be. The more people who subscribe and the more people who like and rate the show, the more we give you an opportunity to have some great takeaways. It doesn't take you too long, and it would be a great help to us to help us grow the show. For now, that's it. Enjoy today's recording. Good afternoon, Emily. Thank you very much for joining us on the Business Takeaway podcast. Do you want to give a bit of a background to who you are and a bit of a background of what finds you here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, first of all. I am Emily, and I am a Cornish girl born and bred. I've pretty much been here my entire life. Grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. That sort of established my love for sustainability and food, and ended up in the business that I work for today, which is St Austell Brewery. I lead our sustainability agenda. I'm a team of one, so do all things comms, engagement, upskilling, strategy, action, data reporting, compliance, something sustainability relevant, you name it, I do it.
So let's start with the day job. When somebody hears the title, you introduce yourself as sustainability manager at the brewery. What do they think you do, and actually, what do you do?
Do you know, I'm not actually confident I know what people actually think I do, but it probably lies somewhere along the lines of just talking a lot about solar and wind and waste. I've been called the waste gremlin because I do have a tendency to go and pick things out of bins and tell people that they put it in the wrong one. But that's a very, very small part of my job, and I think that's not really quite what I do. And I think outside of impact reporting season and I guess carbon accounting season, which largely spans January through to sort of April, no 2 days look the same. I'm very much talking to people. That's my job, is just talking to people, because as a team of one, influence is everything. And I work alongside various functions just to help them make better decisions, which is essentially what sustainability is. There's no way I could deliver the strategy alone, as much as I wish I could. My role is influence and being a bit of a translator, translating sustainability into a language that people across the entire business can understand.
The brewery's been around for research says 170 years. You might correct me if that's right or wrong. But how do you, in a business that's been around for so long, sustainability is something that's come to the fruition in the last 10, 15, 20 years, right? How do you introduce that sustainability piece into such a historical and a business like that that's been around for so long?
Yeah, well, actually, we're celebrating our 175th year this year, which is really exciting. Lots of celebration going on, lots of merch popping up with 175 on. And I think one of the things that I've tried to prove since joining the business is that heritage businesses are actually perfectly positioned to deliver and lead on sustainability. You know, a company that survived for this long, 175 years, has adapted countless times to a diversity of challenges. We're talking including the likes of war. So yeah, sustainability is just another one of those. And it's really not about changing who St Austell Brewery are, but about protecting what's always made us as a business successful in that 175 years. So that's great beer, it's thriving pubs, it's strong communities, and places that we're rooted in. And I think my role is just to build on that heritage rather than to replace it.
And you touch on some of those different areas, right? You've got the pubs, you've got the beer. What's been the hardest point on the sustainability to move or get moving from your point of view?
I'm very lucky to work for a business that I feel like I'm not fighting anyone. I think that sort of rests in the fact that I'm probably maybe a somewhat rare sustainability lead in the sense that I come at it with a very commercial mindset. So my goals are actually very much suited to the business goals. They're not in tension, they're working together. But if there is a challenge, it's probably just trying to make it feel very relevant to different functional levels. Because every function obviously has different priorities. So I'm not going to sit there and ask finance to think operationally. I'm not going to ask marketing to think like procurement. So I've got to frame sustainability around what each team is already trying to achieve. And that is basically efficiency, resilience, customer trust, or commercial performance.
And you've got also with the hotels and bars and things, you've got remote workers, remote teams. Again, that must be a different challenge to work with them and get them 2 or 3 people away from where you are every day doing sustainability, because that's a big challenge as well, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? I work remotely quite a lot, for example, so that's a challenge in and of itself. So when it comes to upskilling and engagement, it'll be a lot of online upskilling and engagement calls, whether that's through Teams or through a webinar. And then when it comes to pub teams, that looks very different. I have a sustainability committee, and those people are amazing on my committee. They sort of span the entire business, and they can take that information and deliver it in person. We are a really complex business. So we've got, like, say, hotels, pubs, we've got 5 depots, 2 breweries, and that spans the entire of the Southwest. And as just one person, it wouldn't be very sustainable for me to get in a car and go to 160 plus sites all the time. So yeah, there is that added complexity with being remote. But actually it probably makes it easier as well, because that connection is it's so easy to get.
And I suppose, as you said, it's being sustainable in what you can achieve. You getting in your car and driving miles around the Southwest is not sustainable. So you've got to put in policies that everyone can enact through the business at where they are.
Yeah.
So it's a mindset. Is it a mindset more than actually putting a true policy in place?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think mindset over policy every day, engagement over policy every day. This is a people problem, not a technical one. It's a cultural shift, and culture takes time. It really does. But it's making sure that everyone every day has sustainability embedded into their sort of core decision-making processes. Easier said than done to achieve, but the strategy has gone, I think, a good way at bringing that to life, because it makes sustainability feel a little bit more tangible, a little bit easier to understand, rather than this word that people associate with green or environment. It's it gives them a framework that they can work towards, something that they can make relevant to their area of the business, and really start to act in accordance to the goals that we've set. And that sort of really helps facilitate a mindset shift.
And did you start with the strategy, or did you start with the mindset shift? Because you could impose that strategy to them, or did you get everyone going, actually, this is really good, we should be doing this, and then you put the strategy behind that?
No, it was the strategy first. So I joined the business 18 months ago, and what I felt was like, actually, the business was already doing really good stuff, but it was quite disconnected. It wasn't necessarily targeted at the biggest areas for opportunity, our material impact issues. So it was a case of coming in. Everyone already knew that this was something they had to do. That's what they had me there for. They sort of invested in internal resource because they knew that this had to happen. And I actually think, generally speaking, whether that's people are connected to place in the Southwest, so they have this sort of inherent care for the planet, it didn't feel like it was necessarily a case of having to convince them this was something we had to do. It was more how we do it. And that's what I did. I came in and sort of established what the business ambition was. That was to be a fast follower globally and a leader locally within the Southwest. And we've tried to figure out what that actually looks like. And I think it is connection, collaboration, bringing people together. And that once we got the ambition in place, it was okay, well, how do we design a strategy that's going to work in such a complex business that there's no cookie cutter approach to 45 very different pubs in very different areas. So it had to be a strategy that people could take and embed in their site or in their area of the business. And that's what we've done, and it's really brought sustainability to life and made it much easier for people to connect with.
And when you came into the business 18 months ago, was there one thing you looked at and went, right, this is the first thing I'm going to tackle? Or was it just as you said, they were doing some good things already? Or was it the one thing you stood out and went, this could be better, no better?
There are probably a few things. The strategy being the first one, because we didn't have one. We didn't have any goals, nothing that was sort of guiding our sustainability action. It was just lots of really wonderful projects happening by a few very keen beans. So the first thing was going, okay, well, what's our long-term plan? What's the outlook? Where do we want to be? How do we want to be perceived? And started there. And then communication was the next one. So like I say, there was fantastic work happening, but it wasn't connected, and people knew that there were individual projects happening, but they didn't know how it fitted into the bigger vision. And that's just because at the time we didn't really have one. So having that strategy was like a foundation for being able to improve everything else operationally, from a communications point of view as well, with our wider stakeholders. Obviously, supply chain is really important. So that was the first thing. And then I guess in terms of a very specific thing that I can pinpoint, it would have to be carbon. And I like to avoid carbon tunnel vision or anything like that. But I came in, we had this target that didn't feel like it was rooted in evidence or data, because we didn't have very good data at the time. So the focus has been on getting better data and then using that to inform a net zero target that we can be really sort of trusting of ourselves to be able to hit that target. So that's what we've been working on a lot over the last year, getting the data and then using that to inform strategy.
And you talk about the external part as well, your suppliers and the supply chain into you. How have you found the supply chain have bought into? Because you can, in my business, I've done carbon, where we do carbon bits, but actually that falls down once it leaves our business or before it comes to our business. So how have you got those businesses involved in supporting the mission of what the brewery is trying to do?
I think one of the perks of being a heritage business is that we've had really long-term relationships with our value chain partners, and I think it starts with relationships. I did a TED talk early this year on the power of relational influence led leadership in the context of sustainability within a corporate setting. And I don't think if we were to go to our suppliers or customers and demand that they tell us what their net zero targets are and what they're doing to hit them, that they would respond very well. It's more a case of having a conversation and walking alongside them rather than policing them. And because we've got some really long historic relationships that have worked really, really well, we can have those conversations. We can be quite transparent and quite honest, and we can support one another. That's how we've done it. 70% of the food, for example, that we source comes from the Southwest. And we're really, really proud of that. And a lot of those suppliers are already doing amazing things, whether we're talking about Matthew Stevens, who supply our fish, or Trewithen Dairy, who are 100% regen dairy providers, or Send You Eggs, who are like up and coming and absolutely flying on the sustainability agenda. We're quite lucky that all of them are already doing very, very well.
So you didn't have to do too much to get them on board of what you were trying to do at the brewery either?
Not trying to convince them. What we are doing at the moment is building our first ever supplier engagement program. So off the back of our first ever supplier survey, where we have asked for this kind of information, but not in hopefully a forceful sense, just us trying to get a really good understanding so that we're able to tackle our scope 3, which is 89% of our carbon footprint. With that data, we are going to be developing a proper engagement program and just seeing what our role plays in our supplier relationships in the context of sustainability. Some of them are doing great things, and some of them are smaller businesses that are more focused on keeping the lights on and delivering a great product, and probably don't have the time, energy, or understanding of any of this stuff because they are a bit smaller.
And somebody listening to this who obviously isn't in the brewery or farming or hotels chain might listen to this and go, sustainability, right? It costs money. Sustainability does cost money, right? How can you sort of put something across to somebody like a CFO and go, we need to do this sustainability thing, but I need £500,000. It doesn't matter what the figure is. You need some money to do it. How do you put across that that's the right thing to do?
Yeah, it's a funny one because yes, it does cost money, but I think more often than not, it would cost less to spend the money now than it would down the line, waiting for climate change to do what it's going to do and to have to pay for the consequences of that. So it's not a case of can we afford to do it? It's can we afford not to do it? So if I'm talking to the CEO, I'm not framing it as this green initiative that, that we're doing because it's the right thing to do. I'm talking about it in the sense of a resilient, risk-averse business, one that, we want to thrive for another 175 years. And if that's what we want, then this almost is not negotiable. And I think the other thing that people often misunderstand, they think of sustainability as this cost center, and they're not thinking about it as a value driver, which I find really frustrating because a lot of the time it saves money. So by improving our waste management processes, which we did over the last year, we're saving around £60,000+ every single year just because we're putting things in the right bins. So that is saving us cash. Good sustainability. Fundamentally, it reduces waste, it improves efficiency, it strengthens supply chains, and it builds resilience. And those are all commercial outcomes. I don't think it's a case of sustainability and commerciality not working together. I don't think they're in conflict. I think they do work hand in hand.
Do you think you've had to sort of go, that 60 grand, again, doesn't really matter on the figure. Have you had to then show that to your financial team and go, hey, listen, we've done this thing and actually we've saved the business? And are you getting more traction now in support because you can be seen to be saving the business money and things like that?
It definitely perks their ears up when I get to show them a number like that. And then, sort of politely forget that I would quite like to get, say, a wind turbine, which is going to cost significantly more than £60,000. Yes, those things are great. It's great to be able to showcase a commercial benefit to doing what we're doing. My concern sort of more rests along the lines of trying to prove an ROI for other things that I'd like to be doing. For example, metering. Our breweries are very energy intense areas of the business. They're half our carbon footprint, and bear in mind we've got 45 pubs which do a lot of output. You can see that brewing is quite an impactful area, and right now we have a metering system that gives us a very good overall view, but we can't dig into the granularity of where more energy is being used at a particular time. Now, finding an ROI or defining an ROI for something for metering, sub-metering, is really difficult because you could find that you put those meters on and actually it's running at total efficiency. There's no improvements to be made. Very unlikely, extraordinarily unlikely. I'm sure there's a lot of behaviour change, a lot of innovation that we could do to improve those systems. But going into a room and saying, I would like to buy these things at X cost, I can't prove an ROI. That's problematic.
And I suppose it takes everyone on the board or senior management team to be on board with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
To support that, right?
100%. There are some businesses doing a really good job at that as well. If you look at Jubel, they've got this environmental tax, I think a self-imposed environmental tax. So when it comes to things like that, they can spend the money and just say, well, that's our tax to the planet. We're drawing from ecosystem services. So that's what we're gonna do to give back. So working on something like that is quite powerful.
And you talk about the tax or the goals and things you're trying to achieve. When you're setting there, somebody could put a policy together and go, we want to be more environmentally friendly. How do you put a goal together that's as you said, you want to be achievable because you don't want to miss the goals, but how do you put something as this much return to the planet or whatever? Where do you start by putting something together in those sorts of areas?
Yeah, so this was the whole process when we were building Crafting a Brighter Future, because that is just to give you a bit of a view of what the strategy looks like. It's got 3 pillars. Each of those pillars has 4 priorities, and every priority has a mission critical goal that overarches a series of KPIs that span the next 5, 10, 15 years. So when we built this strategy, somehow we ended up with 80 KPIs that take us up to 2040, which is absolutely crazy. And I'm not sure many businesses would say that they've done something quite like that. But all of the 12 priorities has ownership at a senior leadership team level. So I sat there with senior leaders and I showed them a series of goals that were what others in the sector were setting, and had a conversation about how realistic they seem to be for our business. And we went through them all. We tweaked them, designed them, made sure that they were relevant to our business, and made sure that they were achievable, but also still quite stretching. And that hasn't actually always been the case. For example, we did say we were going to set a target to reduce our gender pay gap by 3 percentage points by 2030. And miraculously, we've done that in the first year of the strategy. So that was an example of a target that was, not maybe stretching enough. It's a difficult example because that's a moving target. It's definitely your gender pay gap is not static as a business shifts and changes and the people come in and go out. But it is a good example of, okay, maybe we could have gone a little bit harder on that. So I connect with those people on a very regular basis. We review those KPIs and make sure that they are still stretching.
And KPIs, every business has KPIs, right? How easy, you said 80 KPIs, which is a lot.
Yeah.
How easy is it to keep the wider business, again, going back to that wider piece, how easy is it to keep that on? Because it could be, if you look at 80 KPIs, people go, can't affect, can't move, can't whatever. How easy is it to keep, can't, 2, 3, yes, 80, they just forget them. So how have you achieved that?
I think it's because they are set at these different interims. So for this year, there's only like 5, and there are a handful each year. And I wanted to do that because I felt like if we only set targets like 2040 and it was net zero by 2040, the message that I was getting was, well, I'm not going to be here in 2040. That's another 15 years away. So actually, I don't really have a role to play. There's not much point. So I was like, okay, well, we need to have these interim targets, and that's how we're going to keep moving and making progress over a long period of time. It's having those short, medium and long-term goals. And that's I think that the reason that our strategy has been so successful. I'd say it's probably the big reason we won the Best Sustainable Pub Company Award at the Publicans this year. And they just said it was that sort of long-term outlook, but with these various goals that kept us moving and on track. And I just think without them, if it was just a few actions, but they didn't, have a goal that they were working towards that was, say, going to influence somebody's bonus, maybe it wouldn't move as fast as you'd like it to.
You're a very consumer-led business, right? You are a business that has visitors every day and people taking that. Has this sustainability piece come more because you're business to consumer? Or do you think it's something all business should be doing? Because quite a lot of people I know who listen to this podcast are B2B, and therefore it's not so, it's important, don't get me wrong, but it's not perhaps important as a consumer piece.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one. I guess it depends on who you're talking to within the business, because anybody who's focused on a commerciality is obviously going to be focused on the consumer. And the case is always about how do we get more people to come into our pubs, and that's and sustainability is one of those things. We did do a piece of research on this earlier this year, which is quite interesting. We've got a guest panel and we asked them lots of sustainability questions, just trying to figure out how important it was to them, what was it they were looking for, which issues were they most connected to, and did it make a difference? And does crafting a brighter future make any difference to their decision when it comes to picking a pub to go to? And I think what we found was that taste, quality, cost are still the primary drivers that bring people to a pub, or drives their purchasing decision, say in a retail store, because obviously we do sell most of our beers into the likes of Sainsbury's and Tesco's as well. And what they did also say was that sustainability was a nice consequence of a decision that they were already happy with. It's basically an expectation. So it's not why they come, but if we didn't do it, they would definitely consider not coming in the future, which is really interesting.
Do you think that's a shift that's changed in the last 5 years? Because if you asked that 5 years ago, would people say that give the same answer?
There's definitely a say-do gap, but I think the narrative has shifted. I think 5 years ago, people were more likely to say that they would spend more money on a product for it to be, sustainably produced. I think now they're much more likely to admit that that's not actually the case, especially in today's economic context. But they are going to say that actually sustainability isn't a nice to have. It's not something they should pay more for. It's something that should just happen.
Especially us both sitting here boiling in 30-degree heat.
I'm not going to. Nobody on this podcast needs to know this, but I am very warm and I am sweating just a little bit.
Yeah, likewise. But it's I suppose in the last few, especially we're recording this mid-July, right? So, but I think in the UK especially, I think I've seen a lot more about global warming in the last 2-3 weeks because we've been in this 30-degree heat that we don't usually have in the UK, right? And some people will watch Clarkson's Farm talking about all the crops because there's no that. And these are things that perhaps 2, 3, 4 years ago we're like, oh, it's global warming. Do you know what I mean? It's really hit home in the last couple of summers for us.
Yeah, it started to become really tangible for the first time. I think a good few years ago, it felt like this abstract thing that you would see on the news and just think, okay, well, that's happening somewhere else. And it's actually being dealt with by other people, the experts, your policymakers, your sustainability practitioners, whoever. And now it's having this very real impact on their day-to-day. It might even be handing them like a bill or so because, for example, my car screen, I just posted this morning on LinkedIn, my car screen's been smashed. That's a very dramatic way of putting it. It's got a very large crack in it because of the heat. And that's cost me £209 to fix. So I'm now getting the cost of climate change hitting me beyond feeling so hot that I can't sleep at night. And when that starts to happen, when people start to see that impact and it's impacting their day-to-day life, that's when they start to really tune in and go, maybe this is actually a problem and maybe I have a role to play in dealing with it.
And I'm feeling, I travel a lot globally and I'm sort of starting to go, perhaps all those flights I do, I mean, it's a small part you play, but actually that little bit of part adds up, right? So.
Yeah, a massive. The conversation I have at work, we do a lot of carbon literacy training, and we talk about the various things that contribute to the global carbon footprint. And aviation seems to be the one that everyone thinks is like, oh, that's like the worst part. That's the single most important thing you can do to influence a carbon reduction. And I don't think it is, because if you look at the numbers, I think it's less than, correct me if I'm wrong, but less than 1% of our global carbon footprint stems from the aviation industry. And it's not down to us to actually, say to stop getting on planes. I think it's down to the transportation sector to deal with decarbonising themselves. And then we worry about the things that we can actually impact. So for us as a business, food is massive, agriculture is massive, so it's waste. And I tell them that actually 8 to 10% of global greenhouse gas emissions come from food waste. And then you talk about the fact that, if food waste was a country, it'd be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gases behind the USA and China. And that's when they start to go, oh my goodness, so actually the best thing I can do is not waste food. That feels really simple. And it feels like it's probably better for my bank balance. And it's like, yes, it's really that simple. Don't have to give up your holiday, but maybe start thinking a little bit more strategically every day about how you're using your resources.
And do you think the work you've done with people in the business has translated into their personal life? Do you think people have come 100%. Home and changed how they're doing?
Yeah, 100%. Like I say, through carbon literacy training, we did that session with everyone on our senior leadership team and then a bunch of other people across our sustainability committee and ops teams. And they have to, at the end of that, make a personal commitment and a commitment that they say they're going to do in the business. And I read all of those personal commitments and I speak to people and they go, no, I'm genuinely going to do this. And it might be something as simple and small as, say, one day a week they're not going to eat red meat because they have every single day for, their entire lives. They're going to cut one of those days out, or they will travel to work via bike one day a week. whatever that action is, it adds up. It really does. And we're a 2,000 person business. So if every single one of those people make one of those changes and they start talking to other people in their family and their wider network about those changes that sort of live beyond the business, it's got this wonderful butterfly effect where we're starting to really boost awareness, but beyond our borders, which is really interesting. But yeah, I definitely think they change certain behaviours as a result of that awareness. And I had a few people come to me before Carbon Lit and say, I don't actually buy into climate change. I don't believe it. The climate has always changed. What's the, I don't think you can convince me here. And then 4 hours later, they come to me and go, oh my goodness, I had no idea. Because once you've seen the data, you really can't argue with it. And once they believe in it, that changing behaviour becomes very, very easy to do.
Does it all come down from the CEO? Because ultimately somebody at the top's got to own that, right? So if the CEO is looking at investment or looking at where money should be spent or things like that, he's got to decide, right, I go and put £500,000 or, and doesn't matter the figure, into marketing and sales and buying more pubs or buying more farms or whatever, or do I go and put £500,000 in sustainability? He's got to make that decision, and that must be a hard one for you to influence or him to make that,
Sure.
or is he key to know this sustainability? This is what I'm going to sort of live and die by.
Yeah, we're very lucky. Our CEO is Kevin Georgel, and he just gets it. He really gets it. From the moment I met him, I thought, okay, I'm okay here. I'm not going to struggle, because I think he comes at it from this lens of, okay, I've got kids and I want them to know that I've done what I can to, prevent what is going to be without sounding too dramatic, global collapse. If we don't crack on. And he has taken overall accountability for our sustainability strategy. He's got a full governance structure. He sits at the top, and then we've got an ESG board. We've got a family council. There are feedback loops between those two. Then we've got our exec board, then our sustainability committee, and our priority owners who sit on the leadership team. So it's a really well, I think, thought out governance approach. And the fact that it's anchored by C-suite ownership, that's why it's going so well.
And I suppose then he gets the rest of the board to buy in. He gets everyone else to buy in because he's leading it and people believe in it, right?
100%. Yes. Yeah. Really simple.
Do you think sustainability has a negative story behind it, or publicly negative? I think, I've got to be, we talked about it being on planes or whatever, but do you think it's actually it's a branding problem, really? Do you think that's a case of it? It's more of an environmental thing rather than something that actually a business can make a good thing for.
I've actually spoken about this quite a lot recently, and I've said multiple times that sustainability needs a rebrand. We had a board session last week where the topic came up, this sort of negative connotation that's been attached to sustainability. And I think that's just happened probably maybe largely because of the current political landscape. There's a lot of misinformation and just a general misunderstanding of what sustainability actually means. So people are sort of trying to bring in new words, whether that's regeneration, or whatever the new word is. And I don't think that's the right thing, the right approach. It is just a case of trying to improve everybody's understanding of what sustainability is. And I guess the big problem there is that there's no universally accepted definition. So people hear it and they still just think environmental. They're not thinking about it with this very lovely systems lens where, the economic, the environmental and the social systems are all very interdependent, and sustainability is fundamentally just about the balance of those three systems. So what we don't need is more sustainability experts. We just need better systems thinkers, really. But yeah, fundamentally it needs a rebrand, but what it means more than anything is an actual definition that we can all take and sort of live and breathe moving forward.
Yeah, because I was surprised you said sustainability. You were talking about the gender pay gap. Now, I wouldn't necessarily put that as naively, right? You're going to probably educate me otherwise, but I wouldn't put that as a sustainability piece. I'd put that as a sort of corporate social responsibility piece, which wouldn't, because I would go sustainability, how we're using energy, our supply chain, how they're using energy, how in my business we're packaging things and things like that. Do you know what I mean? So that's the it's interesting to understand from your point of view where those sorts of gender pay gap and things like that falls into your responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think it fundamentally does. The definition to me of sustainability is basically the triple bottom line. It is the economic, the environmental, and the social. You cannot have one without the other. So if we're going to deal with the climate crisis, social sustainability has to sort of be a big part of that and come first. We've got to look after our people and our planet all at the same time, and that is what sustainability really means. And so, yeah, I mean, our strategy has these 3 pillars. One of them is protecting places that inspire. Those would be the very environmental elements, so carbon, water, waste, nature. And then we've got celebrating partnerships that matter. So that is about our supply chain. It's community giving, our business partners, because we have an Eastern tenanted estate with 123 pubs that are run by people that sit outside of our business, that are absolutely core to us delivering on sustainability, because they actually represent 22% of our carbon footprint. And then our food and drink offering, and that's like healthy and sustainable diets. And then we've got our people piece, which is championing people with passion. And that's learning and development, employee engagement, equity, diversity and inclusion. But we're reframing that as we welcome all, because it keeps changing. It used to be D&I, and then it was ED&I, and then now it's JEDI, Jedi. And then brand experience, we've also integrated into that priority as well. So it is a holistic approach to sustainability. And that's something that I don't think every business is getting right now. They're adopting a sustainability manager they're only given a remit for the environment, and not making those connections, I think, is why those strategies don't necessarily go very far very quickly. And I think that's probably why ours has made quite a big impact quite quickly.
And did you do all those strategies together, or was it one that led Brian? Okay.
Yeah, all in conjunction with one another.
Because that's the other way of looking at it, that makes it a lot easier to sell it all together, rather than coming in from a position where you've just been like, we're going to look at our supply chain and everything else we'll bring later. Do you know what I mean? It makes it easier.
100%. Yeah. When we built that strategy, it was all a case of, no, we take a very 360 lens here. We come at it with a commercial mindset, a resilience mindset, and a sustainability mindset all in one go. And a sustainability mindset does incorporate the commercial and the resilience piece as well. So it was a case of people, planet, profit. How do we build a strategy relevant to all of those? You won't. I don't think you typically see a business stick a profit pillar in the sustainability strategy as much as they probably should. It's kind of been considered a bit of a dirty word in recent years, and for the first time over the last, I guess, 2 years, I think I've started to see that shift, and people have started to go, no, a resilient, a viable business is a sustainable business, and so profit really is key. It's interesting.
If we took Emily outside of the brewery, and you were walking, and you were to walk into a new business, what are the first things you would you everything I've heard from you in the last 35 minutes has been outstanding and is really, really uplifting to hear a business doing this, right? But if we were to take you out to a business that has done nothing, absolutely nothing on green, sustainability is on green, wrong word.
Sure.
But where would Emily start, and where do you think you can make the most impact into a business straight away? What sort of things would people look?
It's, as I say, it's a people problem. So I would go in, I would listen, I'd learn, I'd figure out where the challenges are, where the opportunities lie, and get started small. It would be, okay, well, where are our biggest opportunities? What's the lowest hanging fruit? Let's get started, make a little bit of impact, and then use that to drive momentum going forward. I think people often wait for a perfectly thought out strategy or perfect data before they actually get started. And that's where they sort of go wrong, because waiting for perfect data and sustainability is it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. It's just not part of this world. And I've had to get behind that as a perfectionist who I like the idea of everything being just right, but you'll never make any impact if you're waiting for that moment to hit you. So yeah, it would be don't wait for perfect data, just crack on, tackle that low-hanging fruit, and then build a bit of momentum, build some engagement, make sure that people are really aware of what sustainability is. I say that you kind of almost need your own definition as a business, because there isn't a globally accepted definition. So you almost need your own, like, sort of, this is how we perceive it, and this is how we're going to build our work around it, and then you move from there. Don't try to boil the ocean, of course, because I think I have a tendency to try and do that and do a million things at once, and then you're not actually going to do everything very, very well. You need to do a few things, do them really well, and then build up over a period of time.
And is there that danger that you've experienced possibly at the brewery where you've tried to do too much?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
This is my first in-house role. So I came from consulting. I was with, I don't know if you've heard of them, but the Future Food Movement, previously Various Strategies, based up the line. I started out in comms and marketing, and then ended up in strategy, and I was basically project managing for strategy projects and impact reporting projects. And that was like a very quick moving space. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get into St Austell Brewery. They haven't got like a strategy, I haven't got all of this and they haven't got all of that. And I'm going to do everything really, really quickly. And I got there and I was like, oh, wait, that might have been ambitious. Just ever so slightly. So a few 80-hour work weeks behind me, I've learned that depth over breadth is 100% the way to go. And it's something I've got to get better at. But I quite enjoy doing everything at once and suffering the consequences of that.
But it's clear you're really passionate about it, right, as well. So for you, it must be it's a passion. Some people go to business or go into work who do it because it's the job, pays the bills to allow them to have the life. You obviously live the life that you are trying to portray to the business you're working with, right? And that comes across.
It's the love of the game. Love of the game. Yeah, I love what I do. I love my job, and I'm doing it for a business that I really love as well, which already helps. It doesn't feel like a chore, and we're seeing, like, when you start to see the benefits and reap the rewards of that hard work, whether that's for a reward, which is great, but the reward isn't, it's not like a trophy that I'm looking at thinking, oh, how shiny. It's the representation that what we've done is actually sector leading, and something that we as a business should be really proud of, and that's what that means.
If you were to sort of walk into 10 different boardrooms, going back to this sort of working other businesses, in other different boardrooms, what's the question you would ask them the most to see if they were being actually sustainable, or they're truly honest to their sustainability?
I think, assuming they had a sustainability lead, it would be, if that sustainability lead left the business now, would the agenda keep moving forward? And if the answer is no, you're not doing a very good job. It should really be embedded into the business, lived and breathed, not just by this one person, this one department. If it falls down when they go, it was never really embedded. So my thing is, and my boss hates it when I say it, but I'm trying to like work myself into almost redundancy, sort of really decentralizing the functions so that it is just truly embedded into the mindset and the decision-making processes of everyone across the business. Everyone becomes an expert on sustainability within their relevant area. That's the main goal. That's the end goal. I mean, you'll always need somebody somebody like me to deal with the compliance stuff. But the doing, the day-to-day action, that should really be so embedded that I could leave and it wouldn't make a difference.
Make yourself redundant. Just talking about that compliance bit, how do you feel governments are doing about it in the UK? Obviously your knowledge is going to be the UK. How much guidance are you getting from them, given that we've had 5 PMs in 7 years, changes in ministers, changes in the government lead in the country? What are you seeing?
Absolutely not nearly enough. Then the very short of it is it's not enough. We waited, I'm not going to pretend I know how long it was for the UK sustainability reporting standards, but it was late. It was very, very late. And even now it's here. It doesn't really require many businesses at all to actually to do it. I do want to. It's there's a fine balance with compliance, because what you do when you force businesses into doing stuff like TCFD, sorry for the many acronyms, or CSRD, anything like that, you risk it becoming a tick box compliance exercise and not something that's really truly embedded in the business. And those things also cost money. So TCFD probably costs around 40k, depending.
What is that what is that acronym for?
The Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure. So a business of a certain size, bigger than St Austell Brewery, actually, I should add, will have to do that. And I massively see the benefit, but it is expensive. And I question whether actually you're better putting that £40,000 into some solar panels or something that actually reduces your impact. I think if you've got a business that really cares about this and is truly committed to delivering on sustainability, which is basically about just being a business that's going to last for the long term, you're fine. If you've got a business that isn't quite so inclined, they probably need those compliance pieces to sort of force them into action. But beyond compliance, there's not enough support at a government level at all. Especially in the hospitality industry. We could, go into the financial implications of everything that's happened in the last couple of years on hospitality and the risk that poses to action on sustainability. Very quickly, the first thing to go when times are tough economically is the sustainability stuff, because there are other things that take priority, like health and safety. So it's there's a support issue, there is a compliance issue. I think there's a balance to be drawn with compliance, but let's just say they haven't quite got it right, not yet.
And if Emily was in charge, what rule would Emily bring in to, if there's one or two rules you could bring in to make it better for businesses or make it better for the environment, what would you bring in?
I've never even thought about it, and heaven forbid should I ever be in charge one day. That'd be shocking. I would like to see every business set at least conducting a carbon accounting assessment and then setting a net zero target. Net zero probably is another thing on top of sustainability that needs a rebrand. But assuming people have a good understanding of what net zero actually means and not what it's positioned as oftentimes in the media, that would be a really good start. Because when it comes to our scopes 1 and 2, we're pretty much on it. There are challenges, yes, but scope 3 is the problem. Now, if every business has set a scope 1 and 2 target, scope 3 solves itself, and we will be fine. So that is pretty much, I guess, where the biggest impact lies.
Looking back at your career, is there something you before you came to St Austell Brewery, has your perception on sustainability changed, or is there something you had a view of 3, 4, 5 years ago or something that you now go, I was completely wrong on?
I think probably speed. When I was in consulting, I used to find myself really frustrated by I hope none of my previous clients are going to listen to this, but how slow things could be. I just think, oh goodness, we gave you this months ago, and it's just not happening. And I now have a whole lot more respect for those doing that kind of work in-house, because it is really hard. It does take time, and it's not a lack of commitment to the cause. It is just that business and culture change takes time. Yeah. So I will apologise to anyone that I've said to before, oh, goodness, this has taken a while, because I get it now. Like I say, when I joined St Austell, I was like, oh, I'm going to do this and that, and it's going to be great. And in a year's time, we would have hit all of these targets. And a year later, I went, oh my goodness, that was never going to happen. Well, we've done a really good job, but it's one of those journeys that is just going to take it. It's going to take time.
Especially if you're in that supply chain, you haven't got a head office where 100 people are there, and I can go and see those 100 enough people, and that's that. You've got that supply chain, pubs, not connected pubs, farms. That's not easy.
It's not easy. It is a really complex business. We're unlike, I think, most others in our sector as well, because we're only one of 2 breweries in the country that does wholesale brewing and pubs with inns. So that is just fundamentally really complex. We also have our own, logistics fleet. So we do all our own distribution. We also have a 95% stake in Harbour Brewery, which, so bringing another brewery essentially on board and doing a lot of work with them. It's that's 3 breweries. It's a lot. It's a lot for one person. But I'm very lucky. My sustainability committee are amazing. Wouldn't be able to do it without them. And very lucky that everyone that I speak to within the business is very much bought in.
And if looking back at your 18 months at St Austell's, what's the project you're most proud of? And it might not be a big one. It might not be the one that wins you awards or whatever, but is there something you go, hey, this was hard work, or this is something I need to really change, that I go, this is really good for the business?
Yeah. I mean, it would be this. It would be the strategy, definitely. It's the obvious answer, isn't it? But I think that's what's changed the game for sustainability at St Austell Brewery. It's made it something that everyone can connect with. They know, when they hear crafting a brighter future, they know that that's our sustainability strategy, and they know what they can do to sort of influence that strategy and make a difference to it. So that is what I would say is really powerful. And it's not just a strategy. We've embedded crafting a brighter future and that work into our team's job description. So 1,500 people across pubs with sustainability sitting in their job description is quite powerful. And yeah, I guess it's not a case of having one sustainability manager. We've got nearly 2,000, which is a really lovely way of looking at it. So that's definitely what I'm most proud of and what I'll take away.
And finally, if we were to have this conversation in 10 years' time, what do you hope that business leaders have realised about sustainability and have changed?
I hope it really doesn't take 10 years for it to happen, but I hope that in that time they understand what sustainability actually is, and think of it as this positive thing that can drive growth and doesn't just cost money. And I think that we really need to shift our understanding of climate leadership. And if so in 10 years' time, if people don't think about it as something that they've got to mandate, but they can influence, that is where the real progress is going to be. Because I think everybody can be a leader on sustainability. The way that you talk about it, the way that you behave, it really influences how other people behave and creates that catalyst effect that I sort of spoke to earlier, that butterfly effect, where we can all start to impact one another. And I think, yeah, everyone's a leader. They've just got to have the courage to sort of take ownership of that influence and take accountability for the role that they have.
I think that's a really good place to end. That's a really nice ending statement. Now, as I said to you before recording, we have some quick fire questions that everyone answers, so there's consistency. So is your platform of choice, is it Apple or Android?
Apple.
Social media platform of choice?
Instagram. But maybe LinkedIn these days, because I've become a bit of a LinkedIn human.
Are you a beach or city break person?
Beach.
City.
Beach, city. I don't know.
Beach in Corn.
Mountains. Can I say mountains?
You can say mountains, yeah. You can say mountains. You travel first class or save the money?
I'm saving money. Can't afford first class.
When travelling, what's the one thing you can never leave without?
My phone.
Fine answer.
Maybe a Cadbury's cream egg.
Can you get those in the height of summer?
Oh, don't you worry. As soon as Easter hits every year, I get them in bulk.
Just stock them up and have them in the fridge like your normal eggs and then your Cadbury's cream eggs.
You will never have a time of year where there is not a cream egg in my house.
I'm the same with mini eggs, but I usually I stock up on the mini eggs, but then before we get to anywhere close to the next round, I'm running out. So I went through the airport. I went through the airport the other week and they had some mini eggs, and I bought some because I was just like, I've got to.
You've got to. I think if you go on the Cadbury's website, you probably can buy them all year round. Maybe have a look.
Bad news. It's not good news. Would you? Are you a morning or night person?
Morning.
Would you build something new or fix what's broken?
Fix what's broken.
Gut instinct or data driven?
Gut instinct.
Growth or profitability? We could swap this to being sustainability or profitability.
Sustainability.
And if I'm at a bar, what is the drink I'm buying you? And it doesn't necessarily have to be your company's drink.
That's good. It's my biggest secret ever when I joined St Austell Brewery was that I was not really big into beer. I've got better in the last 18 months. If proper job 0.5 is definitely my go-to. But if I'm at a bar, I am definitely having a Hugo.
Very good. Very good. Emily, thank you so much for your time today. We haven't had anyone on sustainability, and I think it's such as we both sitting here sweating in 30-degree heat.
Lovely, isn't it?
It's brilliant, but it's very apt, and I think it's a really important conversation every business is having, and I hope that business leaders who've listened to this will take something away from your conversation. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
No problems at all. So thank you very much, Emily, for joining us on the Business Takeaway podcast today. To have somebody who's so passionate and so interested in their own subject matter, which is sustainability, was really fantastic. It was so enlightening on the topic and some of the things covered by sustainability and what the brewery is doing for that. If this is your first episode of the Business Takeaway podcast, we thank you for listening. Please do make sure you subscribe to future episodes. And if you are subscribed, go back and have a listen to some of the previous episodes. There's some great episodes there. I'm sure you'll find beneficial. If you have enjoyed it as well, we'd be really grateful if you could leave us a little rating, whatever platform you are. That rating does help us get to the algorithm, and the algorithm grow and get more listeners. If you have enjoyed it as well, please do share the episode with your friends and family. Let's spread the word about the work that Emily's doing with sustainability. You can find us on social media. Come and interact with us. Come and message us. Let us know the guests you would like to see on the future. If you have a perfect guest or you're somebody you know would make a perfect guest, we'd be delighted to welcome them onto the show. And you can do that on all the social media platforms as well. But anyway, it just leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us today on today's episode. It's been a pleasure to have you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next show.